Hey there, welcome back to this session. It's our last one of the afternoon, and we're going to be talking about surfing the web, using tech to create fun, lasting learning. And of course, the web in this case has to do with Norman Webb, who was the creator of Webb's depth of knowledge. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that and how it applies. I promise it's not going to get too geeky, and we're going to find lots and lots of practical application. And there's going to be lots of opportunities actually for you to get to share some ideas and maybe some examples from your class and that kind of thing too. So anyway, welcome to this session. This is our third one of the afternoon. I have had a blast hanging out with all of you, I've just got to say, from the keynote to the last session and then now this one. So thanks so much for joining. If you are here live, I would love for you to check in just like we did last time, if you don't mind. Let me know who you are and that you're back, or if you were here before, and then maybe tell me, like, I'm trying to think, instead of just saying the same things that you said in the comments last time, tell me like what you, I almost said what you had for lunch, but that might be kind of a boring one. How about what you had for lunch, or what's the best thing you've had for dinner this summer? How about that? One of those two, either what you had for lunch or what the best thing is that you have had for dinner this summer. So we'll go with that. I'm trying to think for me, you know what? It probably has to be, there was a barbecue place that we went to when we were on vacation in Texas. And I think it was in Frisco. So there's a barbecue place in Frisco and we went there and it was glorious because the barbecue in Texas is like 1,000 times better than anything you can get here in Indiana. So. All right. So I want to say hello to everybody again real quick. I know I just asked you for the food thing. So those comments may not be appearing to me yet, but Mindy's back here for round 3. That's good. I haven't scared her off. Janelle says depth of knowledge is my jam. Okay, good. So in that case, Janelle, while I'm presenting, feel free to please drop in additional comments and extra thoughts and insights and everything. If I say something wrong, don't be afraid to correct me, because I'm still sort of learning about it a little bit, but I'm always, happy to share. Ivy's back. Good to see you again. There's Mandy. I saw you check in on the last one after I had already done all the shout outs. Debbie is here, Family Consumer Sciences teacher. Been here all afternoon. Awesome. And again, I haven't scared you off either, so that's good. There's Alyssa hanging out for session 3. Good to see you. Judy Ramey, 3 times is not enough. You are such a dear. Thank you so much, Judy. I'm glad that you're here. Tasha is back. Popcorn for lunch. Good for you. I'm trying to think. I had a taco salad for lunch. We had leftover taco stuff here at the house, so. Juliana just said tacos last night. Okay, there you go. That's right. It's like a rule for me. When in Texas, eat tacos and barbecue. I hope that's not like characterizing Texas too much. Yeah, I don't know. Ivy says, I'm a foodie, so that's a tough question. That probably is. That's right. Mandy had pizza in. Marcia had a sandwich. Melinda had chicken and rice soup. That doesn't sound too bad. Crystal is back. Loves all food, as do I. Lydia is back again from Richardson ISD. I found a new way to make chicken wings in my Instant Pot. Ooh, you know what? We're going to have to be careful because we're going to end up talking about this the whole time. Alyssa says we love to grill salmon and veggies. Talk about something healthy that probably tastes really good. Mindy, sandwich for lunch, double serving of chips. Excellent. Mandy had chicken Greek salad. That sounds good. Carne asada quesadillas for Cindy. Hot Pocket for Stephanie. Hey, can't go wrong with Hot Pockets if you ask me. Oh my goodness, there's a bunch of these. I don't know if I can get to all of these. Taco soup, ribeyes, heavenly beef. I don't even know what that is, but I want to try it. John says best dinner is Chin's Kitchen chicken fried rice. That does actually sound pretty good. Fresh squash, homegrown tomatoes from the neighbor's garden, grilled chicken, watermelon. Again, that sounds healthy and delicious. Oh my goodness, there's so many of these. I can't get to all of them. I'm sorry. I am kind of like scrolling over all of them. There's a lot of chicken in here, I'm noticing too. So good for you. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into this session. By the way, if you're watching this on the replay, we're glad that you found it and that you're watching. And for those of us in the live or the replay, if you want to watch this again, the link to this video, if you're watching this on your laptop, it's up there in the browser. If you're watching it on your mobile device, just grab the link by hitting the share button. You can hang on to that link and you can come back and watch this anytime if you want to, you know. I do have a resources page for this session. It's right there, ditchthattextbook.com/web. Actually, I'm going to confirm that that works because at one point it wasn't working. So I'm going to make sure that, yep, it looks like it goes to the right place. So that's good. ditchthattextbook.com/web. You can write that down. You can bookmark it if you want to, share it with somebody else if you want to. It's got my slides from this presentation and a lot of the stuff that we talk about. So all good things. So jealous that Sheila had Chick-fil-A. I have a hard time turning Chick-fil-A down anytime. So, okay. I really need to stop with food so that we can actually do something here. Okay. So let's take a look at the slide, shall we? Surfing the web using tech to create fun, lasting learning. That's really what we're here for, isn't it? Using tech to create fun, lasting learning. And so I found that using Webb's depth of knowledge in combination with the technology that we have, you know, having both of those strengths at our disposal can make for some really, really cool stuff. And so for some of us, this is our picture of Webb's depth of knowledge, the depth of knowledge wheel. And so you do a search out on the internet for depth of knowledge. And if you go to images, you're probably going to find this. Now, I'm putting this up here only as an example because with some people, if you put the wheel up and you say, this is Webb's depth of knowledge, some people will say, no, it's not. Some people say that the wheel kind of misrepresents the idea of Webb's depth of knowledge. So we're going to get into that a little bit of maybe what it should look like instead of a wheel. I've got something to show you when it is coming. Webb's depth of knowledge focuses more on the type of thinking. You may be familiar with Bloom's taxonomy, which is a little bit more about the activities students do and what they produce. That's different. You know, the products that they create is different from the type of thinking that we have in Webb's depth of knowledge. So that's really what the focus of this is. And then it's also based on complexity and not difficulty. It's not like I'm going to have harder questions. It's going to be more complex thinking. So it's going to go into that deeper thinking instead of just making it harder. You know, sometimes people are like, oh, I'm going to move it up Webb's depth of knowledge, or I'm going to make it more complex by giving them more questions. More questions doesn't really do it. We're talking about deeper, more complex thinking. That's what the goal is at the end of all of this. So that's really kind of where we are on this. It's about the type of thinking, and it's also about complexity and not difficulty. So if you're not familiar with Webb's depth of knowledge, here are the 4 levels of it. And I actually even am not thrilled with this graphic because it almost makes it look like a ladder. It's kind of like an upside down ladder, like you start at the top and you work your way down instead of climbing up a ladder. But I found that the relationship between the levels isn't even perfectly described this way. But let's think of this as like a list. This is just a list of the levels. And so here's what we've got. We've got level 1, recall and reproduction. And we move up to level 2, which is skill and concept. Level 3 is short-term strategic thinking. And then level 4 is extended strategic thinking. So we're going to dig into all 4 of these real quick so we get kind of a feel of what they're like. And the best way that I've ever heard these described is through chocolate chip cookies. So I give all the credit on this to Karen Hess, who is a great education presenter who talks about Webb's depth of knowledge, knows a lot more about it than I do. And she is the source of the chocolate chip cookie description of Webb's depth of knowledge. But for me, this is what cleared it up for me. This is what really worked for me. And so what I would love to do as we go through these in the chat is if you have extra things, extra questions that go along with this, I'm going to put some up on the screen, but if you have extra questions that you could add to the list, I want to shout some of those out. Okay. So let me show you what I'm talking about. If you compare making chocolate chip cookies, or no, not compare. If you describe making chocolate chip cookies through the lens of Webb's depth of knowledge, this is kind of what it looks like. So let's start with level 1. Level 1 of Webb's depth of knowledge is recall and reproduction. This is, can you recall information? We're going to get it into your brain. Can you get it back out of your brain? Reproduction, which means, can you reproduce what you saw? You see it here. Can we go and do that? So it's basically like, kind of lower level, not so complex thinking. Can you just remember something? Can you do something exactly the way that someone else showed you? So here's the chocolate chip cookie connection. If we wanted to put chocolate chip cookies in level 1 of Webb's depth of knowledge, here's what it would look like. And again, I have 2, 4, 5 questions. I guess describe isn't really a question. But if you can think of other questions that go on this level, throw them in there. So number 1 would be describe. Can you describe a chocolate chip cookie? How would you describe a chocolate chip cookie? What is a chocolate chip cookie? How does it look? We could talk about color. We could talk about texture, any of that stuff. How does it look? How does it taste? How do you describe the taste of a chocolate chip cookie? Heavenly. What's the difference between the cookie and the chocolate chips? Like, you have the different parts of it. All of these are real basic, basic level stuff for recall and reproduction. Janelle just threw in Robert Kaplinski's DoK grade level matrices are amazing for this topic. I've not seen those. By the way, Robert Kaplinski is a really great, he's kind of like a presenter and a blogger and a writer on math. But, obviously he has some stuff on depth of knowledge, which I didn't know. So if you're interested in this topic, on Janelle's recommendation, I'm going to say go check out his stuff. I actually want to go check out his stuff after this too, because I've never seen it. Okay, so that's your level 1 stuff right there. Recall and reproduction. What does it look like? What does it taste like? What is it? That kind of thing. Let's move to level 2. And again, if you can think of other questions that go along with all of this, shoot those into the chat. Here's level 2, skill and concept. So here's how I would describe skill and concept. Well, level 1 is recall and reproduction. So that's like, can you recall? Can you remember? Skill and concept has to do with the skill. Like, can you do something with it? So that's like, can you take your information and actually do something with it? So again, we're talking about complexity, right? So this is like taking the information that you've learned and now actually being able to do something with it. So with skill and concept, that's like asking, what can you do? Level 1's like, what can you remember? Level 2 is, what can you do with what you can remember? So skill and concept could be like ingredients in a cookie. What are the ingredients? I actually think that one might be a better fit on level 1. What are the ingredients of the cookie? But then the 2 big ones here are, how do I bake it? How do I bake cookies? Or how do I follow the recipe? Like if I'm putting all the ingredients together, there's a skill involved in that. You follow the steps, and then baking it, you follow the steps, you put it in for a certain amount of time, that kind of thing. So if level 1 was about recalling information, remembering things, level 2 is, what can you do? And so if you can think of any other questions that could fit onto this chart about chocolate chip cookies as far as the skill, and that could be like, how do you beat the eggs? How do you make your own chocolate chips? How do you, any of that stuff? I think any of that stuff could work. So, so anyway, that's skill and concept right there. So we got level 1, recall and reproduction. What can you remember? Level 2, skill and concept. What can you do? Here's level 3, and this is where it gets a little different. This is short-term strategic thinking. And I think it's called that because you have the skill. And then if you want to deviate from the skill a little bit, you have to do a little strategic thinking. I call level 3 the anomalies or the what ifs. So if you want to do the skill, there are certain things that make you do the skill a little bit differently. For instance, and this is where we can have some fun with other potential questions. This one is a little bit easier to come up with other questions than just the ones that I had on the first one. Like, how do I bake cookies at altitude? Have you ever seen that before on boxes whenever you make something and it says, if you're at altitude, then you need to boil it for longer, or you need to cook it at a different temperature or something like that? That's one of those anomalies. You know how to cook and bake cookies, but whenever you get to altitude, all of a sudden, things change a little bit and you have to do some strategic thinking to make it work. What if I don't have all the ingredients? Can you make cookies if you don't have all the ingredients? I mean, we know that there are lots of substitutions that you can make, right? So if you don't have all the ingredients, how do we do that? And then how do I bake them if the oven is broken? Is it possible to make cookies if you have a broken oven? See, for me, I think being a guy, my answer to that question is, can we use the grill? Can we grill them? Can we put the cookie sheet on the grill? Let's see if we can make the cookies with the cookie sheet on the grill. I don't know if anybody's ever done that before. I don't even know if that's possible. That's just where my mind goes. So that's level 3, short-term strategic thinking. It's the anomalies to the skills, right? So as we go through these, we can, and there is still one more level, but I wanted to stop and think about this for a second. As we go through these, the big thing you want to ask yourself is, how does this apply to my content? So, you may have level 1 stuff. I think everybody does have level 1 stuff that we need students to be able to remember and things that they're able to reproduce. But then if we go up to level 2, which is the skill, how can we take what we've learned and do something with it? Do you ever stop and ask yourself that question? Now that the kids have learned this, what can they do with it? It applies better in some places than others. And then once we've learned a skill, if students learn a skill in our class, we can step it up to level 3 and go, what are the anomalies to the skill? What are the places where it doesn't totally fit? For me, teaching high school Spanish, there's lots of talk about verb conjugations. And in verb conjugations, there are, when you conjugate a verb, you change the ending of it to match the person who's doing it. Is it the first person I? Is it the second person you? Is it the third person he or she? And in all of the verbs in Spanish, there are anomalies. You have some of them where whenever you say the I form, the ending doesn't go the way it's supposed to. That's the anomaly. That's where this could kind of come into place. Lisa says, how can I make them low carb but still delicious? I think if you're able to figure that out, I think you may have a business on your hands that you may be able to run with. But yes, that is a good one right there. And apparently if the oven is broken, air fryer. See, I don't have an air fryer, so I wouldn't have thought of that. And Sheila's saying, I assume, yep, maybe you can cook them on the grill. I think that's where I saw that. Level 3 can be like plan B. I love that. Yeah, that's it. That's a really good way of looking at it. It could be like level 2 is the plan A, like this is the skill that you normally do. Level 3 is plan B, like if the plan A doesn't work, then this is what we can do. Excellent point. Love that. Very good. Let's keep going. Now to level 4, which is extended strategic thinking. For me, level 4 is the now what level. Level 4 is the in light of what we've learned, now what? That's what this level is all about. And so, sorry, I just saw this comment. Shira says, my kid said it was so hot in the car, we could bake cookies in there. I believe it. How hot is it here in Indiana today? It's a sultry 86 degrees here. And you all are like, oh, 86, that's it? That's nothing. Actually, it's not that bad out there. Anyway, level 4. This is the in light of what we've learned, now what? And so The questions that come with this one is, now that we've learned all of this, how can I make a healthier cookie? And see, this one can kind of go, and see, Lisa put this one, the low carb but still delicious, on level 3. I think it could kind of fit in either place. It depends on what you're trying to do. Low carb could be an anomaly to the regular skill. If the regular skill is making cookies, the anomaly to it is the low carb version of it. We could also say that this could be level 4 extended thinking, because it's like saying, in light of all that we've learned about cookies, here's what we want to do with it. So I think you could go either way. How else can I use my baking skills? Because, level 2 is a skill. It's a skill that we've learned for baking. This is called transfer. Can we take that skill and use it someplace else? How can I bake a cake at altitude? Now we took our level 3, which is how do I bake cookies at altitude? Now we apply it someplace else. See how we're using different things from the different levels and we're applying them and kind of mashing them all together? How can my baking help others? That's like, how can I support others with the skill that I've got? In light of what I've learned, now what? How can I apply this to my own life? I think that's kind of the big level 4 question, right? So think of any other chocolate chip cookie related level 4 questions. You got 5 of them on the screen right there. If you can think of anything else that could be a level 4 type question, throw that into the chat. I'd love to see what other ideas you have when it comes to making cookies. Now, notice the little chart that I've got on the screen. By the way, I'm almost done working through the levels of Webb's depth of knowledge. So, the nerdy pedagogical side of this presentation is almost over. But notice the chart that we've got over here. Now, this is another one. This comes from another, this was a YouTube video that I watched. I wish I could have remembered who did that so I could give them credit right now. But they were saying that even by putting all of the levels one on top of the other is not necessarily a good representation of what this actually looks like. It's more like this. Remember, level 1 is fact recall, and level 2 is skill, and level 3 is the anomalies. You can slide any 1 or 2 or 3 of these into level 4 strategic thinking at any time. So you could do level 1 and level 2. That's like, fact recall and the skill, and then you can slide both of those over into now what. You could really do just level 1 fact recall and slide that over to now what, even though there's not a whole lot of now what. If you've already got a lot of the level 1, now we're talking about the skill and the anomalies. If you focused on those 2, you can slide that over into the now what. So that's kind of the organization that we've got. We've got more insight from Janelle, who says DoK is all about critical thinking skills. It's all about the verbs. What are the kids doing to show their learning? Good. I'm glad that you brought that up. Excellent. Okay. So in light of all of that, let's switch this over into the techie side of things. Can tech help us to do this? And I think the answer to that can be yes, absolutely. Now, here's an important question that I think that we have to ask ourselves, is that we can work through any of those levels of depth of knowledge, but I think we've got to ask ourselves this important question. Is tech improving the learning? This is one of those big questions I think we have to wrestle with all the time when we use instructional tech, because we can use the tools to do different things. But the question is it actually elevating the learning? Like, for instance, if we are learning and, this is the level that we're learning at before we use the technology. The question is, if we rethink the learning and we incorporate the learning, or we incorporate the technology into the learning, does it do this to the learning? Does it bump it up a little bit? If we incorporate technology and we feel like the learning is exactly the same, like nothing has changed, nothing has improved, nothing's deeper, we've got a question, is it really worth using in the first place? That's sort of a complex, tricky question, because sometimes we want kids to learn to use technology for the sake of learning technology, like they need technology skills. But if we really want to focus on them learning the content in our class, I think technology has to add to it. So this is a critical question that I think we need to keep in mind is technology improving the learning? So as I talk about all of these things, I think when you go to use them, you've got to ask that question. Is it actually improving the learning? So let's keep moving. Let's start with level 1. Recall and reproduction. If this is that kind of thinking, if we're trying to just do recall and reproduction, there's a handful of tools out there that I think lend themselves to that. And this is where I would love to hear from any of you in the chat. If you have any suggestions for helping kids to recall facts, reproduce something, and if you've got a tool that allows you to do that really well, then definitely shout that out. I think that the 3 big quiz tools over here, you've got Kahoot, Quizlet Live, and Quizzes. These are all the ones that do that, that formative assessment, the ones where we can kind of do a check-in with students to see what they know. Those are all really good at this. In fact, I'll even go further to say that I think Quizlet is really good with this too, to help students with recall. What's nice about Quizlet, and hopefully you're familiar with Quizlet, it's been around for a long time. It's like digital flashcards, right? And so what's nice about Quizlet is that it will let you practice with terms and definitions or concepts and descriptions, or however you want to set up your cards. But it will let you do that recall practice. And what's also neat about Quizlet is that it will let you star the flashcards that you struggle with, so that you can go back and practice the ones that you have more trouble with. This is something that the other tools up here don't have for students as individual study. With Kahoot, you can't go back and just study the ones that you missed. With Quizzes, you can't really do that either. But that's definitely something you can do with Quizlet for the flashcard part. And then we were just talking about Pear Deck in my last session. Pear Deck and Nearpod are 2 tools that let you make your presentation slides more interactive. And so I think that's another really good one when it comes to recall and reproduction, is you're able to ask students some recall type questions on those slides and have them interact. So I think those are some good ones too. Curious to see in the chat if anybody has any other ones that they really like that promote recall and reproduction. Now, of course, I think it's important to note that I'm just throwing some tools in that promote the kind of thinking that goes in these levels. Just because you use one of these tools doesn't mean that you're necessarily using it on level 1. But I think that this is the kind of thinking that you can do a lot of times. It's like these tools lend themselves more to that kind. So I'm going to keep my eye on the chat and see if anybody throws anything in for other level 1 type of stuff. One other thing I will share real fast is there's another one of these sort of like quiz show style review tools that a lot of teachers are really excited about right now. And it's called, I'm actually going to bring it up here and show it to you real fast. Not actually play it, but it's called GimKit. But one of the things that I like about GimKit is that it does ask everybody questions and everybody's able to respond. But it has a couple of neat extra features. So for instance, what's the 6th planet from the sun? My very educated mother just served S. So that's Saturn. Click on it and look at that. Whenever you answer in GimKit, it gives you cash. No, it doesn't really give you cash, but it's like, digital fake cash. It's like Monopoly money, This is the thing that sets it apart a little bit. If you've never played GimKit before, you collect basically like money almost for getting questions right. And then whenever you get a question right, you can either continue on to the next question or you can go to the shop. And the shop is where you're able to buy power-ups. Now, this is a different kind of like This is a different mechanic than you usually have in a game like Kahoot or Quizzes, because if a student buys like money per question, the amount of money you lose and gain per question goes up. Streak bonus, extra amount awarded for answering 2 questions correct in a row. This is one of the things that Gimkit came up with first. Some of the other ones are coming up with some things like this, but this can be one of those things where kids are playing it and they're trying to save money to get power-ups. And sometimes they're answering questions and it almost doesn't feel like work. So I can click on the streak bonus. And so if I buy it and see, look, I don't have enough money to buy it because I have to buy it for $10 or $10 and I only have 1. So I got to go back. And so, and then it looks like you can buy power-ups as well. And then you can buy themes too, which is kind of cool. Actually, those are newer features that I didn't know about. 50/50, the discounter, the mini bonus, the mega bonus, so on and so forth. And so if you decide that you don't want to shop, then you can go back and you can answer another question and continue. That's kind of how Gimkit works. And so if that's something that you think your students would get a kick out of, that's something you might want to check out. Gimkit isn't like fully, totally free. It's something that you can make a couple of games for free, but then you've got to pay for a subscription. So looks like Shara says, my 5th grader said Gimkit was cool because you receive money. Right, exactly. And then Judy says, I think this one was created by a student. Yes, it was. His name's Josh Finselbeiner or something like that. He's from Seattle. And he was a high school student whenever he created it. And now Gimkit is his full-time job. And I do like that it involves gameplay strategy, just like Judy says there. So anyhow, that's our level 1 stuff. Now, when it comes to level 1, there's one other thing I wanted to share with you. And that is that, asking students to recall things is not too old school. Sometimes we go, oh man, like flashcards? How long have flashcards been around? There's definitely got to be a better way than that now, right? Well, the truth is that the thinking that goes behind flashcards and goes behind a lot of these things hasn't gone out of style. In fact, and I was just talking about, if you were in on my keynote this afternoon, I was just talking about cognitive science, brain research. And the one part of it that I talked about right before we sang Living on a Prayer was retrieval practice. And retrieval practice fits very nicely into recall and reproduction. In fact, if you want to get the most out of your students practicing and doing that recall and reproduction, having some of the key components of retrieval practice in mind can be really, really good. Now, I wanted to share this website that you can see on the screen. I wanted to share this real quick with you, because if you go to retrievalpractice.org, it's this great website created by a cognitive scientist, but this cognitive scientist has taught in a K-12 classroom and is still a practicing college professor. And so she actually uses this retrieval practice stuff with students all the time. And what's nice about it is that she has all of these downloads and these resources, as well as strategies that you can use to bring the power of cognitive science into your classroom. So when I was saying earlier, when we know how the brain prefers to learn, we can learn smarter instead of harder. This is a whole website with a bunch of free resources that teaches you how to do that. So if you want to level up your depth of knowledge level 1, if you want to level up your recall and reproduction, this is a great place to go. And that website again is retrievalpractice.org. It looks like Maria's saying, I used them in my class and my kids loved it. I don't know, that's probably either Gimkit or some of these like formative assessment tools that we were talking about. So yes, cool. Yeah. Students are really, really into this kind of thing, I think. Okay. So let's keep moving, shall we? Let's go on to level 2 and level 3. Now, I put these two together because if you think about it, level 2 is the skill and level 3 is the anomalies. The skill is how do you do the skill, and it's like what who was it? Adriana said level 3 can be like plan B. It's like the plan A and plan B, just like she said. So I put plan A and plan B together on the same slide. And so the big question I was asking myself is, what tools are out there that lend themselves to demonstrating skills? And these are some of the ones that I came up with. And one of the big ones, I think, of course, is Flipgrid. And I'll bet there's a bunch of you that use Flipgrid. So I'm curious to see in the chat if you've ever used Flipgrid before to have your students demonstrate skills. And you can define skill however you want in this case. I'd love to see in the chat some of the ways that you've used Flipgrid to do that sort of skill demonstration. But if you're not familiar with it, real quick, I'm going to pull up the website so that you can see it. Flipgrid is a video response tool where you as the teacher, you can create a prompt or a question, and then students respond through short video clips. So what you see on the background here is this is what the question or the topic would look like. And then the student clicks on the little green plus, and then they're able to record their response. And what you can see on the cell phone here is what it looks like whenever they record their response. It also is device agnostic. You can use it on a mobile device and on like a laptop or a computer. So they record their response, and then whenever it's done, it's added to the grid or added to the topic. And so you can see all of these different, all of these different answers, and then students are able to go click on each other's videos and go watch them. Talk about something that can be really powerful during remote learning. This is definitely it because, whenever we end up in our own homes and not doing school at school, it's tough because kids don't get to see each other's faces and hear each other's voices. Sometimes they just like to know if their friends are okay, if they're safe, what they're doing, that kind of thing. And so this is one way to bring a little bit of that normality back into remote learning, is to help students see each other's faces and hear each other's voices. One of the things that I do love about Flipgrid is that it's got this thing called the Discovery Library, which is a whole bunch of lessons created by teachers and uploaded to the library for free that you can go and assign your students to do. So it's kind of like plug and play. I describe it kind of like, it's like teachers pay teachers for free for Flipgrid. That's basically what the Discovery Library is like. So you can make your own topics and questions, but then you can also grab some from the Discovery Library as well. Okay. Shara says, I have a counseling grid and have used to reinforce and even teach short lessons with kids. They can check in or share with me how they will apply their social emotional learning skills. That's fantastic. And I really think that, especially whenever you're doing that kind of work, whenever you're working with SEL, to be able to hear a kid's voice and see their face, it sometimes speaks volumes. And so just trying to do that stuff through text is one thing, but then getting all of the nuance of their facial expressions, their voice intonation, their body language, you like get all of that stuff. And so I think that's what makes it really, really good. She says, I did learn that when students have not learned to use the platform appropriately beforehand, the moderation is important, but teachable moments are always good, right? So I think that's a good point. And this goes with any of those digital tools, any of the ones on the screen, or really any at all that, we've got to take those steps to create the culture in our classroom of using it appropriately, and then just modeling for them and letting them know what's okay and what's not. And yeah, I've been into those moments before too, where if you're not clear on how you want them to use it, sometimes it blows up in your face. And so she said the moderation is important. Whenever you're creating a topic in Flipgrid, it's possible for you to turn on moderation. Moderation means you as the teacher approve the videos before the students are able to see them. So before they show up in this topic over here, then that's you approve it, and then they're able to see it. And so that kind of cuts back on the inappropriateness, or everybody seeing the inappropriateness at least. Debbie says, I had my education and training students use Flipgrid to tell their why for going into education. Then we watch them as a class, and I'll bet that was powerful. Because whenever you have people talking about your why, again, it's like what I was saying before, you have all of this nuance. You have the body language, the intonation of the voice, the emotion on their face. You see all of that stuff, and you can see, in a different way how they mean it. So yeah, good stuff. Absolutely. The next tool I wanted to show you that is good as far as demonstrating skills is Screencastify. Screencastify is a screen recording tool. Actually, Screencastify works best in the Google Chrome web browser. I'm going to tell you this. If you don't use the Google Chrome web browser, then maybe you just use Flipgrid for this. Flipgrid has a new feature. Let me see if I can pull it up here real fast. Flipgrid has a new screen recording feature. So not only can you record your face, and you can also record your, you can also record on like a whiteboard. So you can draw on a whiteboard and put pictures and text on it and stuff. You can also record with your screen too. Now I just logged into my Flipgrid account. This is my teacher dashboard for Flipgrid. And there's this one tab I wanted to show you real quick since we're talking about Flipgrid right now. And it's this button called Shorts. Now, if you're going to record videos for your students to watch, this may be a really helpful thing, because what Shorts basically lets you do is it just lets you record a short video so that it's shareable to others. Just about any time someone asks me to record a short video to explain something or describe something or say hello or whatever, I like to record it in a short and then just send them a link to it. So anyway, I wanted to let you know that was there. So you record one of these videos and you can just grab a link to it and then drop it into Teams or drop it into Seesaw or whatever. Okay, so here's Flipgrid. Flipgrid is up. And then I wanted to show you real quick. There's this button, the 3 dots, and there's the screen recording. And then you can start your screen recording. You can pick which screen you want to record. Let's record that other one over there. 3, 2, 1. And now it's capturing your screen. So everything that's going on that other screen, it's recording my voice, and then I can hit stop recording and look, there it is right there. So I wanted to share that with you real quick because with, Screencastify is a screen recording tool also, but it's more based on the Google Chrome web browser. So if you don't use Google Chrome, you might just stick to Flipgrid. That might be easiest. But the reason I bring this up is that screen recording is a powerful way to demonstrate skills too, especially if you have something that students can demonstrate on like a computer. So if they're able to, if they're able to kind of like, do a demo on a website, or if they have some slides and they want to record their slides while they talk or something like that, having a screen recorder is really good. And then the third one that I've got is Google Drawings. But if you don't use Google, the Microsoft version of this that I really like is OneNote. OneNote is a great one for being able to take your ideas and then demonstrate them, whether they're skills or whatever. So anyway, those are some of my favorite ones when it comes to that. Okay, so let's jump on to the next one. You can tell by the number of levels that we had before that we only have 4 levels. This is the last one. Extended strategic thinking. This is the one that I get excited about, because this is the one where we can take what students have learned and we can go, okay, let's go do something with it now. And so how does that work? I've got a blend of Google and Microsoft stuff on here, but to stick to Microsoft tools, I think Sway is a really good one to have students get their ideas and then get them out into the world. Don't know if anybody's had any experience with Sway, but it is a really neat way. In fact, let me go to sway.com real quick. Let's see if I can show it to you real quick. Yeah, it says create visually striking newsletters, presentations, and documentation in minutes. And so a Sway kind of looks like, I mean, it really kind of looks like this page that we've got right here. In fact, let's open one up real quick. This is a Sway on how to sway. It's kind of like meta, right? So anyway, they created kind of like a title page. You scroll down a little bit, you got some text, you've got some links, you've got more text, it pops open some images. This is what a Sway looks like. And what's neat about it is you don't have to know how to code. You don't have to know how to do, like web design or anything like that to create a Sway. It's super easy and fast and drag and drop. So if level 4 is focused on the, in light of what we've learned, now what? The now what could be, let's create a website to demonstrate what it is that we've learned. Another way to look at that is through like a Skype call, or it could even be a Microsoft Teams call or a Zoom or whatever it is that you guys use for video calls. In light of what we've learned, now what? What can we do with it? One of the things could be to get connected with somebody that you can share your findings with. So that might even be something like an expert in the field of what you've just been studying. So imagine if you have a class of kids who's just been doing level 1, level 2, level 3 thinking about the weather. And they've learned a lot about the weather. They've learned about, the skills like how different clouds are formed, how a storm is formed, the water cycle. They've gone to level 3 and they've talked about like, I just had a really good level 3 example and it escaped me. The anomalies, so that's like, strange happenings in weather, any of that stuff. And so they've learned all of that stuff. What if they pulled all of that together, all of that thinking together, and their extended strategic thinking, if they're like, in light of all this, now what? What if they got on a video call with like a meteorologist from a TV station? And they got to, they weren't just listening to the meteorologist, they were talking to the meteorologist. And they're saying, hey, here are some of the cool things that we've learned. How rewarding would it be for them if they were able to then say, or if he was able to then say, or she, the meteorologist said, wow, you all have learned a lot. This is really cool. And they kind of like celebrated along with the kids all of the things that they have learned. I think that could be a really neat one too. Judy just threw out their book creator. I think that's a good one too. Since we were talking about sites and Sway, I think book creator is a good one to talk about too. Book creator, I think, was made so that you can make digital storybooks, make digital books, but people use it for lots of things to be able to, demonstrate learning and, put things on display. And then of course, I think you've also got social media too. Like if you have a class social media account, if your school has a social media account, being able to take some of that stuff, even if your school has like an email newsletter or a print newsletter or something, if they're able to take what they've learned and share it with an authentic audience. The neatest part, I think, is whenever kids see that other people have read or seen what they worked on. And then those other people come back and say, oh, I saw you in the newsletter. Oh, I saw you on the school Facebook page. That's pretty cool. Or I learned something from what you guys put out there. That's rewarding. And they realize they're not just doing it for the teacher at that point. They're doing it for other people too. So when it comes to all of those levels, we talked a little bit about what this could look like, but this is kind of all of it all pulled together on one slide. And so when it comes to that, that's the question I might have for all of you. So we'll just kind of open up these last few minutes here for a couple of different things. One is, how could any of this look in your class? If you've got some ideas, if you've had something sparked in your mind while we've been talking, then throw that into the chat. I'm curious to see what that might look like. Number 2, do you have any questions for me just throughout the entire day? Something from the keynote, something from the digital instruction session, something from this session, something completely different. If you've got any questions for me, now's a good time for that. And if you don't have any of those, I'd also be curious to hear, like, do you have anything that you're excited about for this next school year? So I want to give you just a little bit of time to maybe drop some comments in the chat on any of that stuff. What might this depth of knowledge type stuff look like in your classroom? Do you have any questions for me? Or what are you excited about as we go back to school? So I'll kind of hang out here while the comments come in and see what you all have to say. Because again, remember, I've got a little bit of a delay when it comes to all of that. All right. Since I haven't seen any questions yet, I want to show you one quick resource that I'm kind of excited about right now that you might be interested in checking out. And again, if you don't have any questions or anything to add or anything like that, that's totally fine. No big deal. But I did want to show you this real fast if you're not familiar with it. I have a free online course right now. This is it right here. The free online course is Remote Learning 101. And so let me put the link to the place where you can get it down here. If you guys end up doing any sort of remote learning this year, or if you do some hybrid learning, or if you come back face-to-face and then end up stuck in remote learning later, this is a course that can walk you through some thoughts, some ideas, some things that you might want to consider when it comes to remote learning. And so if you click through on it, you'll see that there are 14 different modules. Each one has a video in it that ranges anywhere from, like this first one's only like 3 minutes all the way up to, I think the longest one is 18 minutes. So there's more than 2 hours of video content in there that you can kind of do at your own pace. And then what's nice about it is at the very bottom, this is actually behind my little banner, but it's right down here. Certificate of completion. So you're able to generate a certificate of completion for, I think, 2 hours of professional development credit, 2 or 3. I can't remember off the top of my head. But all of this is totally free. And so if you're interested in checking out that free online course, you can get it at that link right down there at ditch.teachable.com. So just wanted to let you know about that. So, okay. Very good. John says, also, we have a feedback link below his videos, so you can post questions there too, and he's going to pass them on to me. So I'm always happy to respond to questions in that way too. I'm going to put this on the screen as well. This is my email address. So feel free to reach out to me about anything we've talked about here. If there's anything else I can support you with, feel free to shoot me an email. I like to help. That email address actually goes direct to this phone, and this phone is almost always in this pocket. So you have a direct pipeline to my hip right there. If you have any questions, you can always shoot them over there. So, okay. I'm not seeing anything else in the chat here, so I think we're done. So I've had a blast hanging out with you all this afternoon. Thanks so much for giving up some of your summer to think about these things and to chat and to share ideas and everything. I'm always appreciative to see educators who are willing to sacrifice a little bit of their summer to make things better for their kids in the fall. So you all are the best. Had a great time interacting with you in the comments and learning about all the things that you eat and whether you say Coke or pop or soda. So take care. Enjoy the rest of that summer. I hope you all have a great, great school year. And if there's anything I can ever do to support you, please do reach out and let me know. All right. Thanks. Take care.